This next question is about analyzing a graph. The graph is a line plot graph like this with hours spent reading. The question states, the students in Miss Hartley's class plotted the amount of time they read their books last night in hours. There's three questions or three parts to this question. Part A is, what is the total number of hours that the whole class read all together? So for part A, to find the total number of hours that the whole class read all together, we need to know that we need to add all of these hours that each individual student read all together to get the total. So we need to first write down the number of hours for each student. So for part A, we have 3 students that read for 1 hour. 1 student read for 1 1/4. Another read for 1 1/2. 1 3/4. 2 students read for 1 1/2. So let's add another one. 1 1/2. 3 read for 1 3/4. 1 3/4. 1 3/4. 1 3/4. 2 read for 2 hours. 3 read for 2 1/4. 5 read for 2 1/2 hours. 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 read for 2 3/4. And then 4 students read for 3 hours. So this is the total number of hours that students read. And there's a lot of different ways that you could add this all together, especially since there's so many students and so many different things to add together. There is a bunch of different ways that you should visualize this. You could either, you could draw a visual here to help you, especially with the fractions. You could add in chunks or in parts. You could add whole numbers first and then fractions, or fractions and then whole numbers. Any way you want to think about this, or if you want to make it simpler and multiply some, since it's a lot of repeated addition, there's a lot of different strategies. So I'm going to multiply these first. There's 4 students that read for 3 hours. That's 12. I'm just going to do whole numbers first because there's a lot of fractions and that's going to get really complicated. There's 2 2s here, which is 4. And then there's 3 1s up here, which is just 3. So total of just fractions with whole, just hours that are whole, there's 12 plus 4 plus 3, which is 16 plus 3. There's 19 so far. Then we can add, I'm going to add these whole numbers first. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So there's 26 with those 19, 15, 45 hours so far, just adding the whole numbers. But we also need to add these fractions up. So I'm going to try, my easiest solution in my head is to see where I can make wholes with these fractions. There's 1/4 and 3/4. That's 1 whole. So those are done. There's a 1/2 and a 1/2. That's another whole. These are 3/4. Oh, there's 3/4 and a 1/4. That makes a whole. There's another 3/4 and another 1/4 is another whole. There's 2 halves. There's another whole. There's 2 halves. There's another whole. There's a 1/4 up here that we didn't use, and 3/4 down here. That's another whole. And then we have left over a 1/2 and 3/4. So we need to add those together because those don't add together easily. We need to make here equivalent fractions. To add fractions together, you need to remember that the denominator needs to be the same. So we need to make 1/2 have a denominator of 4. So we need to multiply the top and the bottom by 2 to get 2/4, which is an equivalent fraction. So this 1/2 becomes 2/4 plus 3/4 is 5/4, which is an improper fraction that can be reduced or made into 1 1/4. Because 5/4 is 1/4 plus 4/4, and 4/4 is 1 whole. So you have 1 whole and 1/4 left over. So we got, from adding all these fractions, we got 7 wholes, but then we got this one as well. So we have 8 1/4 from the fractions. So we need to go back and take what the fractions were plus what we got with the whole numbers, which was 45. We got 45 plus 8 1/4 to get 13, 53 1/4 hours spent reading by the whole class. That's a lot of hours. That's part A. So let's flip it over. For part D, they want to know what the difference is between the most number of hours read and the least. And then they want to know, for the last part, what the difference is in minutes. So first we need to find the difference between the most number of hours and the least. So the most number of hours is 3, and the least number of hours is 1. So that's simple. 3 minus 1 for that first part is 2. The difference between the most and least hours read is 2 hours. But it goes a step further by asking what the difference is in minutes. So we need to convert hours to minutes. This can be done with proportions, with logical reasoning, so forth. I'm just going to do it with multiplication and knowing the conversion factors. So I know that there's 2 hours, and that in every hour there's 60 minutes. So to find the number of minutes that have passed in this difference, 2 times 60 is 120 minutes. So the difference for this last part, minutes. The difference for this last part between the most number of hours read and the least is 2 hours or 120 minutes.